Hello, everyone. We are so excited to have a special guest here today from Oracle. All the way from foggy Colorado, we have Suraj Chiplunkar here to join us today. He worked at Luddy when he was here in the Career Services office, so we are excited to have him back again and to learn from his expertise. Suraj, if you want to take it away.
Awesome. Hello, everyone, and it's super exciting to have this opportunity to present and talk about portfolios and a lot of questions that even I had when I was graduating from college. And today I'm excited to share that information with you. So the way we are going to go ahead with this is there are initial 3-4 slides that we will set the context. I'll set the stage for the conversation. And after that, I think Sarah and I'm going to have a Q&A kind of a session in a way that most of your questions get answered. And while answering those questions, I'm going to show 2 of the case studies of my own portfolios. But the key difference between them is one was created last year after completing 3.5 years of work experience at Oracle. And one case study was created when I was graduating from college. And that helped me get a job, right? So you can see the difference of different styles of storytelling and how compact it can happen, because I think most of the time we have that question that, oh, I have this much information, I'm going to put everything on the portfolio. How can I reduce it? So we're going to kickstart with that. So what is an online portfolio? From my perspective, the way I see it, online portfolio is just another artifact, which is part of your branding and storytelling. So think of this way, and that when you're going for an interview, you're telling a story. You're telling people what would it be like to work with me as a candidate and what I bring to the table. And a lot of it is not telling the same story that everyone tells, but telling your story. And it's a difficult task, but I would encourage everyone to tell your own story in your own style. So I'm going to quickly talk about the structure, what employers are going to see, and then some live examples. But the way, if you think about this universe of artifacts that you would take to an interview, your one-page resume is like the one trailer that gives or creates just enough interest. Online portfolio is the next one, which will get you inside for the interview. But again, it's not as complex as the detailed interview deck, but it's a little bit more content driven than the resume. And then you would have a detailed interview deck where you go into details of the project and explain them. That's kind of the universe of where online portfolio sits. And this is kind of key to get to this stage, the chance to show your interview deck. And most of the time, and this is kind of an abstraction of your storytelling, whether it's in resume, online portfolio, or even your interview deck, is basically you're connecting the dots, right? In D school, we always learn about this. But basically, that's the story you're telling. What was the what was the problem that stakeholders felt that it's a problem? How did you frame the problem, link specific observation from research, and actually change that framing and created a list of actionable insights and problem framing? And then how did that drive design decisions as you talk about your visuals? And then in the end, how did the whole design come together? This is kind of like the abstract journey that you would talk about. And at the end of this, I would definitely share this presentation. So you don't have to take any screenshots or anything, but you will have this presentation. And mostly what you're talking about, again, is your design process. Online portfolio and slide deck is a living document of the evolution of your design process and how did you come to the design. And it's also a story to tell about how do you work with people and what were some of the challenges that you came across, and then how did you overcome it. So basically, these are like 4 things that mostly people are looking for. Now, before we get into the actual presentation, let me ask Sarah if she has questions, and then accordingly I'll change the screens and what I'm showing.
Yeah, thank you so much, Suraj. That was a really helpful background to go ahead and get us started here. We'd love to have a little bit more background about you. So could you tell us a little bit about how you got to your current role at Oracle and what that process looked like for you?
Okay, that's a very interesting story. So this is December 2019. I graduated from college, and of course I graduated a little late because I had a couple of knee surgeries because of a skiing accident, which happened when I was in Indiana. So I had to like spend like a semester off recovering. But it was interesting because I used to still read design books on the hospital bed, and I learned a lot about design, which probably isn't covered in our curriculum. And then if everyone knows, when you like graduate on December 2019, you immediately were under the pressure to find a job because COVID hit and everything shut down in March. So I had 2 months of time, and it was rigorous. I was literally working 18 hours a day on my portfolio and everything, and interviewing with 3 or 4 companies. And I came at a point where there were 2 options. I could work for an autonomous car company and design that. But for me, ethically did not align with my principles that autonomous vehicles basically are created to remove 70% of their human drivers, right? And it comes off as a capitalist mentality, and it didn't align. And with Oracle, what I liked about it is a lot of, especially what I was going to work on, was integration cloud, which helps healthcare or small businesses automate their business process so that, let's say you're a coffee shop owner, you can actually focus on the business and the people and on the business processes. So supply chain and all of those problems can be automated. That aligned with more what I could do. And during COVID, Integration Cloud also helped with the COVID vaccination tracing and making sure the supply chain and all these things, the problems we ran into, my product was very much critical in the backbone of that. So that's pretty much my story. And I think I'm gonna cover, I'm gonna probably complete 4 years this March. Yeah, 2024. Yeah.
Well, that was an amazing, inspiring story about how like you went from the hospital to being at Oracle. So thank you so much for sharing that. I guess what a lot of our students are wondering right now is like, where do they get started with their portfolio, especially if they feel like they don't have a lot of materials to draw from?
That's a good question. And I had the same issues. I think the first starting point definitely is what you're doing in college, or re-looking at what you did previously, the materials you created before you got into IU. So now that you have learned something, I'm guessing some of them are in the first semester, some of them are in the third semester. This is a good, just take what you have, right? Like you don't have many options. Whatever you have, you take it, but prioritize it in a way that, which is that one project is great. It's a showstopper. It's great. Put that as your first project. And then other projects can be a less simple and they don't have to be very complicated. But right now is a good time to start because the way I understand the ebb and flow of hiring is you create your portfolio, you create your resume should be created by now. Your portfolio, at least you have the aim of finishing your first portfolio by the end of November. And in December, you add another 2 so that you have minimum 3, one which is detail and which is your showstopper, the one project that you're completely proud of and it's great because end of the day, it's your confidence as well. And then the other 2 are kind of okay, and then showcase other aspects of you, like mobile or something that you have gone out of your comfort zone and did. Those are fine, but generally recruiters have 30 seconds to go through. So they're not going to read everything. So just make sure their first portfolio, first piece is critical. And yeah, that's the timeline. and start applying, I think by end of October or November. And don't worry, don't wait to complete all your portfolio pieces. Have a resume, have a target to finish your first portfolio piece by the end of November, but start applying by end of October.
Awesome. That's all super helpful. And I guess when we're thinking about like what a student should put in their portfolio, like is it okay if they include group projects in their portfolio, or should they only include like their work?
Right. So now with this question, we are jumping into actually portfolio pieces. So I'm gonna switch gears and I'm gonna show a portfolio piece, and this will answer some of the questions you might have, but if I don't cover them, you can talk about it. Definitely, one of the biggest things about candidates is, are you good enough? Are you good when you work with people? That's one of the biggest things. So let me go through the structure. And this is the portfolio piece of my work at Oracle, where I was leading the integration cloud design, and I'm now leading the second version. But very importantly, generally the way I work with is I give a brief summary in a first scroll, right? So if you look at this, this is kind of my first scroll, and you can see a thumbnail of the product. You can see what's it called and what it really does, right? And this is very important in part of your storytelling. It's very concise, but it tells what we are doing. We are elevating user confidence while building integration flows. And then I give a very brief summary for someone to skim through it, where it guides user to build integration flows and automate a business process. And then part of that was designing the navigation menu and designing the integration workflow, and then leveraging the Redwood design system, right? Automatically, the three things that a recruiter or a hiring manager wants to know: what is the problem? How did I resolve it? What specific design did I do, that is navigation and integration flow? And then what components or design patterns did I use? Of course, the context is important. What was the organization? What was my role? And what is the team? And what part did I play? So my role was UX designer, but this is a bunch of people I worked with. This was the duration. Here were the tools, and here are the methods, right? Immediately, you're setting a stage. So think of this like you're in a play. There is like a character introduction. In a movie, there is a character introduction, right? A superhero gets introduced and he has this backstory. This is what you're doing. You're telling a backstory and giving a very concise trailer, introducing yourself, setting up the stage for further discussion. So definitely talk about the group projects. And is it okay if I just continue with this format, and we'll come back to the questions, Sarah?
Yep, totally works.
Awesome. Again, what is a problem? I don't think many people, young designers, do a very good job of telling this. And again, keep in mind, all of this content is to be consumed in 30 seconds. So state the problem. So anchor someone's visual that, hey, this is the problem space, and highlight it. So do you see, if someone has 30 seconds and they're going to skim, I've highlighted it saying that users feel less confident while building integration flow. And immediately when they skim, they're like, oh, users undergo a lot of errors. Oh, I wish the user feels that they could not activate it, or they have a feeling that they can't do it by myself. And this is where, do you see where it ties in? This last sentence ties into the word confidence. And that is a problem that I'm targeting. And it's a very human problem. And I've focused on any emotion, right? Do something like that, very quickly come to the problem space, state it, and have a visual artifact. Then jump into how might we statement, like how might we elevate user confidence at every step of building an integration. And I've also an illustration to support this, right? So for example, how can I help them with knowing the product? How can I help them with overcoming their issues when they use the product, and how they can grow, right? And do you see like there is a confidence that is going to grow? And this is kind of my visual illustration, and I'll come back to this. And then very immediately, then I talk about, oh, I did research and here are the insights. When I was in college, I would go very detailed into this and write paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs. No one wants to read it. And that is one of the reasons you tell them what research methods you used and just show them the key takeaways in a very concise format with this thing. And do you see there is like an padding problem here? These are some of the things that would take away your points and reduce the confidence in you. So be careful of that. I need to check why this happened. But again, skimming. Here are the key insights from card sorting study. Users want guided workflows. They need help with troubleshooting, organizing cloud assets, loss of context, and they need to follow the desired navigation paths. No one is going to read this part, right? But if someone has time, let's say a hiring manager is bored and he wants to kill 1 hour, they can go into details. But if they have 30 seconds, just read the heading, move on. And then I'm also now telling a story. This is how the product looked before the design. This is how it looks after the redesign, right? Immediately comparison is great for people to know what difference did you make in the product. And this is a visual where you can see that, oh, this looks 1980s or 1990s or early 2000s. This looks a little bit modern, but it's a little bit noisy, but it's modern, right? Same thing with the navigation. We had 3 levels of navigation before I did the redesign. I brought it down to 2, but it looks so simple. When you show something like this before and after, and I do agree a lot of projects that you have may not have a before and after, but even if you show some problem or like have a problem statement like this, right? Where, oh, the problem was user code. User codes are extremely strong. This is another example of showcasing the problem where this is a participant, their job requires them to take the course material and make it accessible in the university. But majority of the learning happens in a classroom. I wish students and instructors could create accessible content collectively, right? So this is the before. The user is there. You can empathize with them because I've captured them. I've hid their faces for privacy constraint, but we are talking about blind users. And for that, it's very difficult to communicate their ideas to pictures and drawings. And they're impactful, but they cannot do it. This is fine too. If you do not have a before statement, at least do this and then immediately talk about, hey, this is the product. Do you see? So this is another way when you do not have a prior product, you have a user story, you have a real situation, contrast that with your product design, and you will be able to showcase that. I'm going to quickly pause for questions and see if people have questions at this point.
Yeah, so we have a few questions that came in. One of them is from Ong Win. He is wondering if there is a middle ground between design and engineering and coding. They enjoy both, but they feel like you can only stick to one. So how would you address that?
Oh, so I'm going to give a crazy answer to this. This is my understanding from life, and I tend to contradict with most people in the industry. Don't worry about it. So think of your life and your design education and everything as a journey. You will figure out, life will take you, and every 6 months you will change. That is given. So this question that you have, you'll find an answer to it because this is your personal journey. And to illustrate this, I began the program knowing that I'm very good in research and wanted to do UX research. My friend who works in Oracle began the journey because he's an amazing designer. He wanted to be a designer. The reality is today he's doing research and I'm doing design, and we both are good at it. So don't worry about that part. Things will happen in life. You'll figure it out. I think the next question is from Sushmita. As I come from architecture background, I don't have a real life work experience. Also, the projects I've made myself may not be great as others. How do I work in presenting my work in this case? First of all, I would like to contradict to this point that your work is not great as others. Your work is great because it's your work. Stop comparing. It's your journey. The only person you compete with is yourself. Okay, so don't never say something like that ever. The second, you have an architecture background that is still design, right? I had a lot of colleagues who studied with me, and I used to have FOMO that they have architecture background and they know materiality very well, they know craftsmanship very well, they knew everything. Now present those, because that is who you are and it is valuable. Maybe it's your second or third project. And if it's an amazing architecture project, you can do something like this. Now that you are into UX design, how would you now introduce technology solutions in that architecture project and then kind of redo that project while you're studying? And what this shows is your growth. It would capture your growth from architecture. Now you brought in technology and UX design and kind of reapproach the same product from a UX perspective. It might need some extra work, which you do out of classes and stuff, but that would be a great approach and a storytelling piece where, hey, this was the project when I did architecture. I redid the same project from a UX perspective, brought in some technology. Like IoT is great. You can pick up an IoT project and say that, oh, now that I know UX design and I understand voice assistants, I understand IoT devices, this is a twist to the same project that I did in architecture. And you can draw a contrast and tell, this is how I've grown. This is what I know now. And this is what I would do differently. That would be a great architecture. That would be a great portfolio piece. And whatever you do in college, that would be another thing. And like you can go do a project with the museum. Eskenazi Museum always encourages IU students to come and do projects. So take your architecture background and create a museum experience with the UX background that you have and you're learning, and see what you can do where you fuse together your knowledge of architecture and UX design. Anonymous attendee, what platforms do you make portfolios on? I like Webflow. So I began with Squarespace and Wix, and I felt very constricted because it did not give me a lot of space. So I would encourage you to check out Webflow, and it's become very easy. It's just like using Dreamweaver now. And this is made through Webflow, and it allows me to play around a little bit. So I would encourage you to learn Webflow. And there is Webflow University, where there's a lot of support with videos and tutorials, and they're great. I would encourage you to use Webflow and Figma together. Are there any other questions?
An anonymous attendee wanted to know if there were some good design books that you would recommend.
I think I would recommend Type by Ellen Lupton. She's from MICA. I think it's Maryland. That is a good book. I think Michael Beard's book on graphic design is good. And then Design Theory by Eric Stolterman, who's still in IU. His book is great. I'm one of those designers who hasn't completely read Don Norman's books because I was always interested in other designers. See if you can read John Colco's book. That will be, again, impactful because he has a very hippie way of approaching design, and I kind of connect with it. So yeah, those are some of the books that I would suggest. Every 6 months you will change. I'm still in dilemma. I like research or design. How can I figure that out? Let time figure it out, is my answer. You're in third semester of MS at CI. As an international student, you're already limited opportunities. So I do not want to restrict myself to only research. Yeah, so that's a good question. So what I did was I had a research portfolio. I had a research resume and a UX design resume. But one of the ways when I presented my work, because it had research and visuals together, it was a good piece, and people would be like, hey, this looks like a designer's portfolio, or this looks like a researcher's portfolio. And then I would say, yeah, but I'm a generalist who can do both. And because your company is hiring for a researcher and I really like what you guys do, I would like to take it up and become a researcher or designer. So I have two resumes with UX research and UX design separate, and then change your storytelling where you're focusing more on research or focusing more on design aspect. And that is okay to do, because one of the best things about IU's education is it allows you both. You will be good as a researcher, you will also be good at this. And oftentimes that is what I asked myself. I was good at research. So when I graduated from IU, I was like, I don't want to do research. It's boring. So I became a designer. But currently, I do both because we sometimes have shortage of researchers and research team. I take up the research. And this is the key uniqueness that I bring to the table in my team, that I can do research and design and product strategy. And that's why I'm in a leadership position, even though I am one of the younger employees, right? So don't worry about it. Just go for any opportunity that is in front of you. On the landing page of the portfolio, should I add more content? Add more content and projects such as my hobby? I will come to that, Sol. I hope that I said that name correctly. Honestly, my featured project is not an end-to-end one. We skip the research and jump right into design and implementation part. Should I make some stuff up to make? You can go and do a research again. So this is what we call as retroactive research, where you go back and do the research. Just because you skipped it during school doesn't mean no one is stopping you from doing it now. So go back and do it by yourself if no one is teaming up with you. But do a retroactive research and bring it in. And then you could say that, oh, I did the retroactive research and this is what I learned. This is what my team made, but this is how I would change based off of what I learned from the retroactive research, and then do a usability testing. So, and this is where I will come up. I'll share a philosophical thing. I keep telling this to people. Do not become a passive person who lives life passively. You know that your team has skipped research. Take control, become an active entity in your own life, and go and do the research and then present a portfolio piece. Do not wait for someone to team up with you. You know that the research wasn't done. Go do it. It will take some extra time, but that's what people who take initiative and have entrepreneurial mentality do. Become an active person in your life. Don't wait for the right project to land into your lap. When I was in hospital, even though I was in hospital, I was working with one of my friends on Open IDEO Challenge. I was like on my crutches going to the city of Bloomington's police department and interviewing him, because I know no one is going to give me an opportunity when I'm in hospital. So I just created an opportunity for myself. That is going to get you the job. When you do something beyond the curriculum and take and lead in your life and create an opportunity for yourself. I guess I've answered most questions.
Yeah, I think one more just came in from Pete. They have 10 projects in their portfolio. Should they reduce it down to 3 to 5? There are several types of jobs they want to appeal to. Some are mobile apps, some are web development, and some are oriented towards specific industries.
Great. So you have a problem that not many people have. You have many projects. You don't have to reduce it. You can put it, but end of the day, do you have that much time? That is going to decide whether you're going to put all 10 projects or just best 3 or 5 projects. Because building portfolios is not easy. It took me, even though I'm a working professional, it took me 6 months to build a very good portfolio piece. It is not easy. So time is your biggest constraint. So don't worry about that. And I think that's what, like, if I were going for an interview, I would put 3 to 5 of my best projects instead of showing all 10, but having a link to those 10 somewhere showing that I have these 2. And I'll give you a quick example of that once we go through this piece of portfolio. Can we also see your portfolio from December 2019? Yes. I'm going to show that very quickly. How would you recommend a similar structure for data science student? I would. I think storytelling is very universal, whether you're data science or you're not. There's a problem. You bring a technological intervention. You come up with a solution, test the solution, do the research. This is a very basic stuff, whether you're project manager, whether you're data scientist or developer, UX designer, as a team, you will do this. You will end up doing this. And telling that story from this perspective, when you go to interview, here's the interesting part. On your interview panel, it's not only software developers, UX designers are going to be there, PMs are going to be there. And that might create a new unique opportunity for you because they will look at your portfolio, which looks like a design portfolio, but is so abstract enough that everyone connects with, and they're like, oh, this guy actually mature. Wouldn't that be great? So yeah, I think it's a very universal thing. So I think there are no more questions answered. I'm going to quickly move on because we have less time. So after showing one of the things, thanks to Figma, that we are allowed to do now, which wasn't there before. So basically, Webflow has a link where you can actually show your prototype, clickable prototype. So you can just go click, oh, I can click here, I can click here, etc., etc. Do you see on your portfolio, you have a clickable prototype? Hiring managers are going to love it. Your recruiters will just see, oh, they have a clickable prototype, and they're going to skim through it. Okay. But that's the magic of Webflow. And now at the end, once I've given that whole narrative of what was the problem, what did the design look before, and what does it look now, and here's a prototype, now I talk about design process. And this is what hiring managers and recruiters are going to do. They are going to skim, and this is how they're going to skim very fast. Oh, this person did research. Okay, I have some metadata regarding that. Great, here are 3 research questions. They learned this thing from it. Awesome. Then they wrote user goals, and they had a diagram that represents that user goal and the user journey. Awesome. They created personas. Okay, they have 3 personas and they're different, and great. Oh, they have also knowledge about looking at data and making data-driven design. And here are some of the data. Awesome. They are good with sketching their ideas and not directly going into Figma, but after some years, you will not even do this. I do it on paper, like a very literally torn away piece of paper because I was having dinner, I had an idea, I drew it, and now I just go into Figma and do it. That's how it will go. Oh, they know how to create components in Figma. Awesome. They have iterations. Oh, let me look. Did the iteration get better? Yeah, it looks this. Oh, it got better. This is a better design. And now they also remove the stepper and it becomes even more simple. Awesome. Now let's see what they did next. Oh, they did usability testing and this is what they learned. And then here are some of the next steps in their design process. Here is how they could have improved stuff. And here is what they learned. They learned about constructive feedback, blah, blah, blah. Good, awesome. Your design process basically is a checklist item. This is how fast they're going to go. Probably even faster than this because I'm not a recruiter. This is how fast they're going to go. And feel free to look at this in your free time. But basically see how very minimal content there is. This is what you need to target for. And there are a lot of visuals that kind of tell that, yes, this person can do design, but also can do research. So back up your storytelling. And one of the things that I like to do, let me see if I can do this somewhere. Oh, I think this is the 2019 project, right? So basically, it's almost the same format. Here I've kind of given how the product works. And there is like a step-by-step manual of how do you draw basic shape, how do you draw freehands, etc. And then comparative analysis. And feel free to look at it in your free time. And then if you can create a team of 3 or 5 people and have a one-on-one session with me every Friday, I'll do it for you guys, and we can go a little bit in depth. But I want to really talk about a structuring of your storytelling. Look at this. So what I'm doing here is I'm placing a claim that uncovering existing capabilities and workarounds by contextual inquiry. Then I write a 2-sentence about how I did it. And then I went with the research process where we tried different materials for drawing with people who are blind, and then what I learned from them. So that's kind of the structure that I would suggest. So generally, again, I think one of the pieces of this, right? Like this is the structure. This is my claim. And this is something you can write down. I can even type it in the chat. But basically, you would do something like, you will write a claim that pursuing STEM education is difficult for visually impaired users. That is my claim. So I wrote the claim. Then I wrote a little bit about the context and what task did I perform to fulfill, or like, what did I do to reach this claim, right? And then the third thing I did was give an evidence. And this is also my language of writing, my way of writing research papers too. If you read my research papers, they are this way. This is my claim. These are the steps or method that I pursued. This is the evidence of it. This storytelling is something that I developed, but you can utilize something like that, because when users are skimming, they want to know what you're saying. Okay, how did you find out? Or why are you saying what you're saying? And is there a real life evidence to it? And this becomes very palatable where you have this structure. So see if you can have some structure like this. And if you look at my 2019, this is my 2019 portfolio. It's very similar with branding and stuff, but what I don't like about it, like this is a perfect example. I could have said view demo video or view demo. Instead, look at what I've done. I've written a sentence that this is a video and this is what the content of the video is. And I said, watch now. Watch now what? Do you see that? I could have very easily said that this is a YouTube video, view video, or watch video, or watch demo. Do you see? And once I would have done that, there was no need of this sentence at all. So if I were to do this now, I would just put one button, done. I would write very simpler sentences, not these complex sentences. And again, my writing has improved over a period of time. So try your best to cover everything within one sentence and put as many visuals as possible. And then one of the things that I like to also talk about is whenever I draw a concept, I also talk about its pros and cons, because this is kind of important as a designer. Are you thinking or are you just designing? And there's a difference. People want a thinking designer, not just a designer. And then highlight your key learning. What did you learn by doing this step? Call out. So this is what my way of calling out. So if someone is even probably wants to skim in 10 seconds, they would just go this, okay, this is what he learned. This is what he learned. Oh, this is good. Do you see how fast it goes? And look at, this is the difference. Reflections section of 2019 project versus reflection section today. It's just bullet points. So make it as concise as possible. That's what I would suggest. And let me go back and answer Sol's question and go to the homepage. So I like minimal stuff. Me personally, I love minimal stuff. So this is what I did. I don't know if you guys have seen, there's a paper plane short movie from Disney, I guess. And it's beautiful, but it has a very romantic edge to it. But for me, I have a lot of memories of playing with paper planes as a child. And I have a jacket which has a paper plane pin, and that just became part of my branding. So I'm using that. There is an IU badge, and then this is Design Life, because really, it's like philosophically, our design education is like a paper plane. It's very lightweight. Half of the people don't understand what we do. And our existence is just very difficult when we are sitting on that. But basically, this is what I say. Hi, I'm Suraj Chiplunkar. These are three words. These are three keywords that kind of cover who I am. I'm an accessibility evangelist. I'm a hiker and a food lover. What do I think about design? It's a service towards humanity and beyond. And recently I read a book where someone said that this is the right way or approach of living life. Awesome. And what I'm doing right now, right? I'm crafting cloud integration flows. You can just send me a note or an email. And then what I've done is, as a senior UX designer at Oracle, these are my 4 projects. I've presented it, but again, there is a storytelling piece. I'm elevating users' confidence. I'm enabling contextual help. My design are helping users organize cloud assets, and they're promoting log data. So it's like a advertisement and a catchphrase. That's what I've done here, and it covers what I'm doing. And then it talks about the context that this is an integration cloud. This is a chat assistant. This is an automation builder. Here, the project was on activity stream. And then my internship and graduate project. So this is my internship project where I was enhancing discoverability. Here I was enabling accessibility, and here I was facilitating ice-free skimming. So I think someone had the same problem. Now I have 4 and 3, 7 projects so far. In the future, there will be more. But see, all of them are chronologically in a timeline, right? So that is something I would do. And you can just import your previous project and not do much work, but just import their short link over here. That's fine. Don't put a lot of work. But your top 3 or 4 projects, put in the work, put in the effort. And then I talk about my achievements, that I have a grant and I have a couple of patents. That is it. I didn't put anything about my hobby, nothing, because honestly, this is what I felt. No one cares about your hobbies or anything. But what you can do is put a picture. If you can talk about your hobby in 2 or 3 pictures, that is how I would do. And I would rather do a little bit detailed stuff when I'm having an interview deck. For example, I have a promo video which talks about me hiking and how I reached this conclusion of design as a service towards humanity. I'll send that video after this class. Generally, one day before the interview, I'll send that promotional video, right? It's like a documentary style video where I'm just sitting and talking about my design process, why I love hiking, and how design and hiking has a lot of parallels. So what I do at every single touch point, I create some interest about me to people. So what I would do, not put a portfolio piece, I would probably send a presentation one day or a couple of days before interview and say that, hey, by the way, I love photography and here's what it is. Here's what happens, the impact of it. If people have time and they see it, they will have a very strong human connection, because one of the panelists will be a photographer and they're like, hey, I love your photography. And they can already visualize in their head, if this guy joins my team, we would really be good friends. Do you see how you're creating that human connection and you're not just an interview candidate? That would be a good opportunity of doing that. I think we have more questions now. The present secondary research insights on portfolio. I'm sorry, I didn't get, so that's what I do. I don't go into detail about secondary research. But basically, I'm guessing you're talking about this project. So I capture whatever I've learned from the research over here, and then I'm providing evidence over here. Again, there's a claim, and then I'm providing evidence. And I'm just, let's go back to the point that I made. I'm basically documenting all the things that I've done. So as a designer, every day carry a phone which has a smartphone camera or a camera with you, and every day, if you're doing something, take a picture. Fill your Google Photos with all the pictures, because those are coming handy when you do stuff like this, where you're like, oh, this is an evidence, this is an evidence, this is an evidence. Photographic evidence does a lot of storytelling where you don't have to write stuff. Should we have projects? Does that answer your question? And if I don't, you can feel free to reach out again.
I think they might have been referring to like secondary research being research that you didn't conduct. You attribute that in your portfolio, like other research that you've pulled, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so then you can just put a link to that. So let's suppose you're doing something like that. First of all, let's go back to this diagram. If you can do something like that and just put a, I'm going to use annotate. It doesn't have annotate. Anyways, you can just put a line over here at the end and a link to that and just attribute it. That's fine. Because you're reading, for example, I read a research paper which was written in Europe, and I generally just attribute it in one sentence at the bottom that, hey, this is what I found out from that research. That's fine. Does that, I hope that answered the question. Should we have projects that solely showcase our technical skill listed on our resume, or maybe list technical skills without validating, without projects and experience? So again, follow-up question, is this someone, whoever is the anonymous attendee, are you a designer or you're a data scientist or computer science?
And whoever that is, you can just type it into the chat, because I can't enable speaking for you because you're anonymous.
Right. But basically, here is what I've done, right? In my overview part, I've written down what are some of the skills that I had, which I used for this project. For example, contextual inquiry, co-design workshop, Wizard of Oz. Same thing I've done for, oh, this is not my, same thing I've done for even professional experience. So I talk about my skills by talking about the methods. And this wireframing, designing components, variants, design iteration, prototyping, usable testing, I've put my skills here. So this is generally good, just to begin that conversation that way. Right. Okay. So very quickly, I wanted to talk about branding, because this is very important part again. So do you see that? Let me actually go and show my Figma file. And you have to stop sharing for that. Okay, I'll do the reverse. So do you see my color choices, my text choices? This is Indian red. This is, the font is Poppins. This is, I think, something else I forgot. This is a sans serif font. And then here's the logo, right? So there is a style that I've developed, and then there is a color style as well. But basically, I've done the same with my resume. I don't like bullet points. That's why I just highlighted the first letter to be colored, but it is the same font. It is the same branding style, same colors. Not much of a difference. But again, storytelling when you're doing a resume, and I think Career Services does a good job, is see how I've used achievers adjectives. Reimagined, redesigned, conducted, which is not achiever, so I toned it down. Audited, campaigned, mentored, championed, spearheaded. And then I tell a story with using the STAR method developed by Amazon that tell us about the situation, tell us about the task or actions you took, what were the results, and what is the impact. This is important. And I'm talking impact in terms of numbers as well. People like that in technology. So I added 22,000 chat assistant utterances. I was responsible for 13 plus cloud workflows. I was, I created 10 spatial data creation options. I conducted a study with so many participants. I composed 182 dialogue flows when I was working for Samsung, right? Do you see there's like actionable number that talks about, I mentored 5 interns. There is an actionable number which talks about my results and impact. Bring in numbers when you write your resume. And let's take one sentence, right? So let's take this: reimagined 13 plus integration cloud workflows by delivering design specs. So that is my task in action. I've kind of flipped it to facilitate a user's development lifecycle and Redwood system design update. That's the situation. Same thing over here. Enable more than 22K chat assistant utterances by designing UX guidelines for providing contextual help and guided learning, right? So that's the situation. Here is the task. So I did kind of a reverse star because that's what my style is. And then I just talk about my educations because, and again, this is where you need to know your strength. I came in with 6 years of work experience. Up until here, I had this work experience when I came to IU. So I went with my strength of showcasing my work experience on the left side, and then just mentioning my education. But I did a good job of talking about my achievements and my publications. Maybe you don't have that much work experience. I had friends who studied with me, they did not have any work experience. What they did was they put the education first and some of the college projects as the second part, and then achievements and stuff, and then this thing. So you kind of design based off of your strength. And generally the rule is if you have 10 years of experience, 1 page of resume. I'm soon gonna become 12 years of experience, which gives me which means I can have another page. Awesome. But what I also wanted to show, and I'll come and answer those questions real quick, and this won't take much time, but this is again going back to branding. So these are my business cards. The above one is more for side gig, but this is my business card. Again, same logo, same look and feel. Very concise way of telling, this is my portfolio, here's the password for the portfolio, here are the 3 organizations I work with, my contact. And do you see, like I developed my branding when I was in my 2nd year, and then I've just continued it for the last 4 or 3 years. So I'm going to read this question from Anonymous. Would you recommend a 2-column resume or 1 column? Pick your style. It's really subjective. Awesome. Are there any other questions?
I have a couple. We'll do kind of rapid style and then we'll kind of wrap up.
Yeah.
How would you link a portfolio on your resume? Do you include it on your resume? How would you do that?
Definitely. So did you see I put my portfolio in my business cards and my resume, and the password was also there.
Okay. And then should you put projects on your resume?
Sorry, what was?
Should you put projects on your resume as like a section?
Yeah. That's the thing, right? Like whether you have work experience or no work experience, put some of the most important project. So I think when I graduated in 2019, I had couple of college projects which had got some recognition. So I put them.
Okay. Does Oracle use ATS to shortlist applicants?
One of the new trends right now is to use AI tools and not to use ATF and all those, because what happened is those systems kind of created bias against women and people of color and BIPOC. So a lot of recruiters are pushing back on it. But they're using AIs to skim through and get a brief description of who you are. I would still say this is one of the things I would do. Look at the job resume, see what keywords they are using, use exactly those keywords wherever my resume has those artifacts. And then I would publish into a PDF and make it accessible PDF, apply. I would still do that. I would still recommend that.
Are there specific AI tools you recommend for resume writing or portfolio building?
Figma.
Figma. Okay. All right.
And then there is a question from Pete. If the portfolio is actually viewed, I used an AI. I used a data tool, Hotjar. I use Hotjar, and every time someone was looking at my portfolio, whether it was in because I was in IU, it was easier for me to know who watched my portfolio in SF and this. And Hotjar also told me what areas maximum clicks happened, etc. I am not sure if Hotjar is still there. It might have shut down, but look for something which gives you heat maps of your website. And that would be a great tool. So analytics, again, is a very important part to know what content of your portfolio is working, what is not, and how do you bring the most important thing to the focus.
Unfortunately, I don't think we have enough time to answer any more questions. Suraj, thank you so much again for taking the time to speak with us today. Do you have any parting words, parting wisdom that you'd like to leave us on?
Yeah, one of the things that really helped me was I made a rule when I was in IU that every month I will connect with one person from the industry and seek mentorship actively. And what happened by the time I was graduating, I had 15 consistent mentors, whether it was Facebook or any named companies, and they helped me get my referrals. Like connections work. Don't just be the person who's sitting there and applying for 100 jobs. Build connections, seek mentorship.